So I'm Lindsay Hammerslag, and just to give you an idea of who I am and where I come from, I am part of the Rapid Actionable Data for Opioid Response in Kentucky group. It's an initiative here at University of Kentucky where I'm a professor of like data stuff, biomedical informatics, and we are bringing together different data sources to try to make it easier for the community, people like you, people like Medicaid, to look at the data, understand what's going on a large scale, and make good decisions. So that's all still in development, which is what I was just doing a minute ago. But what we are working on for the core system is we managed to get funding through Radar to support CORE with a data capture system. So they've been working with us for the past year, and we've been interviewing agencies to get their input on what they needed so that we could build a data system that would improve the data entry process. And we had goals here to balance helping CORE and helping you all. So we're helping CORE by reducing the amount of time that they need to process their data. In the past, they were having to go through spreadsheets and like manually clear them out and clean them out so that they would be able to be turned into graphs. It's more complicated than you'd expect sometimes, and it was really taking quite a lot of man hours. So we're going to help them by making that all simpler, making data right the first time. We're going to help you too, though, because we're making a web-based form that's a lot easier for you to collaborate on. You can all track your data in one spot. If you have multiple team members, they can all enter the data together as it's collected. And that'll really make things more efficient. You'll kind of lose that end of the month crunch that you might have had before. Your contact, if you have any questions about this, first line is always your implementation specialist. Laura Middleton is on the call. She introduced me. She's a great person to contact, and then me as well. So I'm Lindsay Hammerslag. Feel free to email me if you encounter any bugs in the system. This is our very first week of launch, and so we'd expect that there might be one or two little things that we need to fix, but we can fix them fast as long as we know. All right, and welcome to people who just had a chance to join. All right, so I'm going to start with an introduction to what's new. So the biggest change is that the data is online now. It's a web-based system that lets you access and interact with your data. Your team is going to have two options for entering the data. There's a web-based form, which is appropriate for most teams, that will reduce the amount of typing you have to do, reduce the amount of times that you have to enter the same data more than once, make your life a little easier. And then there's a bulk upload system for agencies that have very large patient volume or have very specific needs that make this a better option. As data is going into the system, we're checking it automatically for errors. We'll be giving you instructions on how to fix your data as it's entered. And once the data is validated, that's a fancy word for checked and loaded into the system, you and your teammates can view and download it. So it will be your data, you'll have access to it. All right. So as long as you're staying up to date with submitting your data, it's going to be automatically passed to CORE for reporting each month. We're going to remove the name and date of birth fields, which I'll get to in a minute. Those are new, but those are encrypted so that they can't be viewed by anyone that's not supposed to view them. And they're removed before they're passed on to CORE, and then we'll give the data to CORE after it's been de-identified. They'll see anything else in the file, though, so please make sure that just like before, when you're submitting the spreadsheets, that you're leaving any identifying information from the notes section of the data. Your agency and CORE will have the ability to run reports on your submitted data. That feature is just a little bit delayed. We hope to get it up in the next month. But for right now, we're just going to focus on getting data into the system. There's a few different types of new information that you can submit. The first is optional data. This is not ever going to go to CORE, but we think that it's going to make things easier for you so that you can have more certainty over what you're doing in the system. Things are a little bit less hard to follow. And so those two new optional fields are name and date of birth. We heard from a lot of people that they were trying to put name and date of birth somewhere just so that they could try to remember what the ID numbers meant, because those weren't ever supposed to have identifying information either. And so we're making things easier. We'll encrypt the information. It's only visible to your team members, so anyone who's in your agency, and it lets you just kind of work a little smarter. We also have some new optional fields that CORE would like to use. The first of these is county. This is where the patient is located, and it's useful for allowing core to track data at the county level, can give them a little bit more power to make guided decisions. The other is recovery service referral information. So you've always had the option to report if you're giving people recovery services like peer support or transportation support. But now CORE also wants to know if you're referring people out to other programs that are providing those services. The idea being that they're getting a picture of how the system is working together and people who are getting the kinds of connections to care that they might need, even if you didn't give them the direct care. It still matters. Now, so those are optional. They can be missing. We do have some mandatory things that the system requires, and it will not, if you're trying to do bulk upload, it wouldn't accept your file if you don't include these. If you're using the form, it won't accept your form if you don't include these. And those mandatory fields are visit date. Visit date is new, and previously you had sort of had to go through on your own and like create a count of who was present in a given month and then deduplicate the data. We'll do all that for you. So we're going to make it easier for you. We're reducing your workload. All you have to do is if someone comes in, you can just note whatever happened at that visit and the day that the visit happened. And then at the end of the month, we'll tell you, you know, how many people came in and had any visits for substance use disorder or any visits for opioid use disorder or stimulant use disorder, how many ever had a visit where they received something. So we're going to roll all that information out and make those reports for you. All we need you to do is put in visit date when people come in. So that means you're going to be putting in more than one row per person if you are interested in if you're continuing to provide core funded services. The next one is unique ID. You have always had to include a unique ID with the files that you submitted to core, but we're checking now. So if something goes wrong and you're trying to reuse the same ID for two different people, you're going to get some warnings. It won't let you, it'll tell you the date of birth and like the client information that's associated with an ID if you're using the system. If you're trying to upload a file, it'll warn you if the date of birth doesn't match. So we're really enforcing that unique ID now. And then finally, the agency name is something that you'll see as you're interacting with the form in the drop-down menus. And it's something you'll have to make note of if you're doing uploads. So let's get our eyes on the system. The way that I've structured this training is I'm going to show you videos to sort of show you how the system's working. And then I'll talk you through where things are and what I was highlighting in the system. At the end of the training, I'm going to really breeze over the data upload section. Those videos are pretty long. You can find them on YouTube. I just don't want to waste everyone's time since most of you don't need to do that. All right. So here we go.
To start, I'm going to show you how to access the core data portal through the Radar KY system. So to get to the system, you're going to type radar-ky.uky.edu. And that's all you have to type. You can hit enter and you'll see the login page. This home page may change in the future, but look for the word that says login. Here you have the option between the two systems that you can log into. Some of you may be getting accounts to look at data through Radar KY in the future, but for right now, if you're seeing this video, we expect you to choose the core button to log into the core system. When I click this button, I come to the core data portal login, and I'm prompted to enter an email and password. Your email is whatever was input into the survey that we sent out, and you should have received an invite email with instructions on how to reset your password and access the system. Please contact your implementation specialist or Laura Middleton if you haven't received that information, and they can connect me with you to help. So I've already set my password, so I'm just going to click my password manager, select the login, and that takes you to the home page. So this is the first page that you'll see when you log into the core data portal. You can see that this is the visits tab. There's also a clients tab. The visits tab is a table where each row in the table represents a single visit. So here we have Bertha Johnson. She came in on January 1st and on February 1st. Her client ID is 72601B. And she's 21 years old. And we have some data about her here. This visits information, when you create a visit, if the client hasn't been seen before, it'll create client information. So this is actually extracted whenever you create a visit or upload a file. You can also manually create a client through this tab on the clients page. And here we see that Bertha Johnson, who had 2 visits, has 1 client record, and her client record includes a little bit more information about where she's from, who she is, and you'll see that there's a handy button to add a visit here. So this is a really nice way to quickly use the portal. From this homepage, you'll also have access to buttons to upload bulk data and a button to download your agency's data. I'll go over a little bit more of the functionality on this page in the future, but if you're an agency that needs to upload bulk data because you have very high volumes of patients, and we've talked to you about how to do that, you're going to click this button and you'll read through. So that's how you get to the data uploader from the homepage. From the visit page, you can interact with client information.
I'm never going to get used to how to it moves the buttons when you're on YouTube. I'm so sorry. Okay, so the homepage is here. You'll navigate to rador-ky.uky.edu. And when you're here, like I said, you will log in by looking for the word login. Just really make sure you click core. We had a bug in our launch yesterday for people who had clicked Rador. I apologize if you were affected by that bug. It should be cleared now. So if you're still having issues, reach out to me. But just make sure that you're clicking core. When you get to the visits page, this is what you'll see when you log in. So when you get to the visits page, you'll see a table. It'll be empty for you at first. But this is where all of the information that you collect on visits will be stored. The main thing that you'll be doing is clicking on new visit to add visit information. This is like an all-in-one button. So if you're a QRT agency or if you're a group that doesn't see the same people very often, but you always have new people coming in, you might just always work through the visit button so that you're putting in client information and visit information all at once, and you don't have to think about it again. But for agencies that have the same person coming back repeatedly, you may choose a different way. I'll get to that in a second, but here's the visit data table. So this is filled in as you complete adding new visits. The data will populate here so you can see it. There will always be 1 row per visit. So if this person kept coming back in, they would keep stacking up more records. You can view the client information through this tab here. This kind of looks like a journal tab. And so this word clients here corresponds to the other tab. If you want to edit information about a visit or view more details, like if you're really interested in whether or not people are getting transportation services or something, you can click on edit to see the full information about everything that was collected at the visit. That's also, this section is also where you would delete a visit if you needed to, or review the logs associated with the visit. If you need to export your data, you would click on the download button. We encourage you to do this often. And then if you want to explore and like look through your data, you can filter what you see using this little button that looks like a filter icon here. We have a couple of different buttons that'll take you home to the portal. Remember that the visits is the homepage. So if you click here, it would take you back to the visits page and just reload it. But either of these buttons will get you there. And then finally, for agencies that need to, the bulk data import would happen through the bulk data button here in green. So we're going to pretend that we click the client information button. This is what you would see if you click that. So it's still the same person that you would see on the last page, but now it's his information about him specifically. So it includes gender, county, race, ethnicity. And then while you are on this page, you can add a new client. So if you have a client who's coming in tomorrow, for example, you can just get the first half of what you had seen on the visit, what you would see on a visit form of just the client information, and just get them ready in the system. And that would create a row in the table. And then you could, when they come in, look them up by name and then press the green button here to add a visit for them. So this is my favorite way to interact with the system. I'll touch on it in the videos that you'll see in a bit, but This is like a really nice way if you have the same people coming back repeatedly, just work through this way. Search for people by name and then press the green button to look them up or to add a visit. And then just a reminder, this is stored in one row per client format. If you wanted to edit the data, you would click the pencil button just like on the last page, but here you'd be editing the information about a person. This is the only place that you can edit things like date of birth, county, gender, race. We didn't want you to have to enter all that repeatedly, and so we'll always autofill it for you. If you catch an error, you fix it through this page. All right, and then the export and import buttons are the same ones that were available on the last page. They kind of do double duty because the visits and clients page are so closely connected, and because we're kind of auto-generating the clients page for you, we have just one set of buttons to import and export. And now you have a couple of ways to get back to the visits page if you wanted to. We still have the data portal buttons and then also visits. All right. Now in the video, I had showed you the bulk upload page. Just make sure that you read through before you attempt any sort of bulk upload. It's all of the time that Core had put into cleaning and fixing files will have to be done by your agency now if you're doing bulk uploads. So it's really important that you read through and get the formatting right and that you match the data dictionary. You were always supposed to do that. It's just that now it has to be done for the file to be accepted. So it's really important to read all the way to the end before you try a bulk upload. All right, I'm sorry. All right, and then we have an option to escape back to the visits page here, and then the same buttons you'd seen before. And then if you've been here before and you don't want to read all the way to the bottom of the page, we have an upload data button up here at the top. Otherwise, as you're scrolling down, you'll see it there as well. They do the same thing. Okay, so now I'm going to show you 2 videos back to back, and then we'll cover some of what you saw as we added visits.
From the visit page, you can interact with client information. For example, you can see that we currently have 2 visits logged for Bertha Johnson, one on February 1st and one on January 1st, both in 2024. Bertha Johnson is at an agency that submits treatment-focused data, and so her data will include the 3 columns that were always specific to treatment agencies and Core's reporting system before. That would be substance use disorder diagnosis, whether or not they initiated MOUD treatment through Core, and what type of MOUD someone received. It also has some basic information here. In the future, we'll hide these QRT columns. These are traditionally associated with quick response teams or recovery teams. And we can get into that a little bit later, but you can see that she has data in these fields. We can also look at her client record. And let's say we wanted to add another visit for her. Maybe she came back in March. Something that I really like to do, my favorite way to use the system, is from the client page. I can search for a client, and this is a little silly because we already have her pulled up, but let's say I type in her name, you can filter to the client, and then you can click the Add Visit button. And that's a really convenient way to autofill all of your information. We'll say that she came in on March 15th, 2024. And so she was 21 on that date. She was pregnant at that visit. And we can see that because she's still at the treatment-focused agency, we have these treatment-focused questions. So here we can answer these questions, and let's say that her substance use disorder diagnosis changes, and at this visit, starting from this visit forward, perhaps she has a diagnosis of opioid use disorder and stimulant use disorder. So you can select the new diagnosis. You can then say that she had initiated treatment and select what type. We have 2 sets of information that you fill out below. The first might look familiar to you. This is direct services for recovery coaching or peer support, recovery housing, employment support, and transportation support. The second set is new to the Core system, but was requested by Core leadership. This set refers to whether or not someone got referrals to treatment or referrals to these services at another agency. So, for example, if you didn't directly provide recovery coaching, but you did refer them to another agency to receive recovery coaching, you could select yes if all of that happened at the core funded visit. So this is where we're going to put our notes. You don't have to make your notes this detailed. I just like to have them, for right now, for the example, a little bit more descriptive, but all of this is captured in the data. And when we go back to the visits page, we can see that Bertha now has 3 records. She has 2 records with her history of stimulant use disorder and 1 with opioid use disorder and stimulant use disorder. If we look at her notes, we can see there was a placeholder that was used in her prior visits, and then here's her most recent visit, which has the note that I just hand typed while I was recording the video. And so you can review past history of notes, you can review past history of visits, and that's one way to enter data from the client you have, is to enter data from.
Okay, so there's something I caught in this video that I just realized is kind of a no-no, which is that I had typed her name in the notes field. So I get that that temptation is going to be strong. For right now, just do your best, and then I will see if I can find a way to strip out any, like if you accidentally put in a name, but don't do what I did and don't type someone's name in the notes field. Sorry about that. All right. So the next video was recorded right after this one. So sorry for that kind of abrupt jump between them.
You have is to enter data from the visit page. So let's do that 2 different ways. First, we'll enter a new record for Bertha. So we have her client ID. We can hit new visit and we can search for an existing client ID number. So we enter it right here. And then as soon as we click away or hit tab, it'll pull up her information. From here, we can select the visit date. So far, Bertha's visits have been in the past. So let's go ahead and say that this one was in April. So it's going to calculate her age as we enter the date. We enter information about whether she was pregnant at every visit for female patients. We're going to enter information about her substance use disorder diagnosis, and let's say that she has the same as before. And let's say we know that she initiated treatment through or continued MOUD through a core funded program. But if we forgot to fill in a field, or if we didn't have the information noted down anywhere, you can always leave this either unselect one or explicitly select missing data. You'll see that the field changes color to indicate that there's missing data. And you can always go back and finish that later if something has gone wrong with your note taking. We'll enter some more information about what services she received. Let's say here she received some referrals and some direct services. And we can just make any notes we want. So now Bertha has 4 records. She has her history of notes. She has this record with missing data. We can fix that if we go back and say, let me just double check the system. Oh, it was methadone. And then you can hit submit. You see that it updates. We keep a record of any changes to the data. So the only field that changed was that MOUD switched from missing to methadone, and that edit was made by me on the 30th. So this is a nice way to keep track of any changes that are made in your data. You can also make changes to the client information. So I had made a change to this patient once before, so bear with me, but you can change like the county that they belong to, for example. And you'll see the prior edit that I made and then the one that I just made on camera here. A whole history of edits for the client. The other way to enter a new visit, it doesn't have to be a client that's already been seen. Maybe you have someone new coming in. So you'll select your agency and then you'll hit the new client button instead of searching for an existing client's ID number, you have two options. You can either enter a ID that's specific to your agency, like a series of letters and numbers, or you can click the random ID button. When you click the random ID button, your ID number will be generated as soon as you hit this green button at the bottom to add the client information. And let's say this person's name was Samuel Smith, and he was born on say this is an older gentleman. Just select something. And just select something. So as soon as we hit this add new client information, you'll see the client ID appear here. So here I'm going to click. And there we see the client ID. So you can keep note of that. You'll also get their record in the system, so you can review it there as well. And let's say Samuel Smith came in today. And we do a little bit of validation as you enter records. So if you enter information that doesn't make sense, like we say that a male person is pregnant, it'll throw an error for that. We do have handling, so it's okay if the person's gender is female to male, trans, it'll also allow pregnancy, but it kicks it back for male and male to female trans. You can also then do our substance use disorder, and let's just test out the error handling a little bit more. So let's say that this person has stimulant use disorder, and we say, okay, we diagnose them with stimulant use disorder, and then we said that they initiated treatment through the core funded program. Well, that treatment is for opioid use disorder, and we've said that this person only has stimulant use disorder, so that actually doesn't make sense, and we're prompted to recheck our entries. If we try to just go ahead and push that file through, we'll get a warning that we need to fix our errors. So let's go ahead and fix our errors. We're going to change this to opioid use disorder. We'll leave this as yes, and then we'll say that this is methadone. And then we can fill in other information here. And now we see we have the new record for Samuel Smith. We remove our filter. If you ever leave a filter on, just remember to hit clear to get rid of it. We can see that Samuel Smith has been added to our client list. And we can filter to Samuel Smith if we wanted to. We don't have to type the whole word. We could just type SMI if we wanted to. Anything that is helpful for you to use in the filter, you can do. And then just release your filter when you're done. But that is an example of how we add new clients through the visit page, or we add visits through the visit page for new or existing clients.
All right. So right after you log in, like I said, you'll be taken to this visit page. And if you click on the visit information, that's how we got to what you were seeing in the video, then you get to see first a question about whether it's a new or returning client. If it's a returning client, you get the opportunity to look them up. You will select your agency from a drop-down menu, and then you make your choice about whether it's new or existing. If it's a new client, then you'll be taken to enter all of the client information fresh. If it's an existing client, it'll pull up the information automatically, and you won't be able to edit it at that point. If you need to, you just have to exit out and go back to the client information to edit it. Okay, so this is what it looks like for a new client. So the client ID is absolutely mandatory. If you are not keeping track of clients in your own system and no one's coming in more than once, it's totally okay to just hit the random ID button. And you can look them up by name later if you need to. But we need to have a unique client ID as part of core. You can type in your own unique ID if you want to cross-reference things against another system. Something that's come up in a few of the trainings is that while we can't get rid of WITs, you can use the WITs ID here if you want to. This is the much smaller, lighter, easier to use cousin of WITS that has very few things that you have to enter. But if you want to like connect someone's info to WITS, you can put it in the client ID if that's what you want. You can also have this as generate an ID for you, and we'll pop up a random number. It'll start with X if it's random. Whenever you're done, you have to hit add new client information. That's the only way that we can get the client into the system, and then we'll show you the rest of the visit form. So as soon as you hit that button, then you can scroll down to see the visit information. If you are working with a QRT or recovery group, then you're going to see a form that looks a lot like this as you scroll down. So it'll say visit details. There'll be a visit date visible. That's mandatory. You always have to have a visit date for your file to be accepted. There's a handy little today button though, if it's just today, like it only takes one click to fill it in. If you are with a QRT or recovery group, then the questions that you're answering are not treatment focused, but instead focus on the history of substance use that you've noticed in the person, and then whether or not they accepted a referral to receive treatment for opioid use disorder. So anybody who's getting interacted with, you want to know their substance use history, whether it's stimulant use or not. But this one for opioid use disorder treatment, we only want to know if those with any sort of opioid use history accepted a referral out. We then have, as you scroll down, some boxes to select yes or no about services that were provided at the visit. This is like what you had in the spreadsheet before, looking at whether they got peer support, recovery housing, employment support, transportation support, anything like that. And then we also have this new set of boxes that I'll show you in a minute for referrals to other agencies or programs. If you are in a treatment focused group, then you're going to have a slightly different set of questions. Rather than talking about history, you're actually going to be reporting diagnosis. And rather than talking about referral to treatment, you're going to be talking about whether they actually initiated, and then if they did, then what type they initiated. Everything else is still the same as you scroll down. So both versions of the form have these two sets of questions. They're asking about the exact same types of recovery services. They just want to know, did you provide them yourself? And if not, then, or in addition, did you refer them out somewhere else? You can put notes here. Don't be like me, leave the name out, and then make sure that you click submit when you're done. And then in the current version, as of October 24, you will see fields that you're not interacting with. And I do apologize for that. So if you're a QRT or recovery group, what matters for you is history and referral, but you're still going to see the ones that the treatment focused agencies answer. And if you're a treatment focused agency, you're still going to see the other questions, and it'll say missing data. And we'll get that fixed as quick as we can. I apologize for that, but don't be alarmed. That's what's going on. All right. So if there are any errors that we catch on your form, they're going to be indicated with red. So here, someone entered the date wrong, or if you were to completely leave the date off, it'll say missing required fields. And then when you try to click the submit button, it'll gray itself out and say, hey, can you please go back and fix that? So that's what you would have to do then, is scroll up. And if it was today, then you would just click the today button and it would reset it to the right information. Or you can click on it and type in or pull up a calendar, whatever works for you. There's some validation that we'll be doing with either history or diagnosis. If you indicate that someone has only a history or diagnosis of stimulant use or other drug use, then we expect that you will not answer that they received or were referred to treatment for opioid use. We talked back and forth about whether this was a necessary check to do, and we decided it does make sense. So if you do click that someone has only a history of stimulant use, but you really did refer them out to treatment for opioid use, reconsider whether you meant to say stimulant use and opioid use. Just make sure that those make sense together. They should make sense in concert. All right, so the next video we have talks a little bit about looking through and then downloading your data.
Now that we have a couple of clients and we've added some information, let's go ahead and test out how to review records using the download button. So you can navigate through this system directly through the front end. But the download button is something that we would encourage you to use regularly to keep ownership of your data and make sure that you're keeping your own copies of the data that you're submitting. So let's click that button. We'll be prompted to select an agency because my account is associated with multiple agencies. So I'm going to ask for the visit data, which includes the client information as of those visit dates. And I'll be unchecking the box to hide identifiers so that I can get all of the information. So download that, and the data we've downloaded will populate here. I just click on the download. You can double click on the columns to resize them. And we can see all the information that we filled in here is showing up. This is the kind of information that you were previously submitting to CORE. This is very similar to the forms that you were giving them before, but now everything has undergone a step of checking and verifying that the data is consistent and valid and makes sense. So we really encourage you to keep these records out of CORE, downloading them out of CORE. If it's helpful for you, you can also download your client information. This isn't something that you've been uploading to CORE, and it's not something you can upload back into the system. It would be for your records only, but these are the client records that we're creating as you input your files. So we can download this for our agency. So we see that these clients are for this agency. We should get 2 rows because Bertha has 4 visits, but she's just one person. So we should get 1 row for Samuel and 1 row for Bertha. Let's take a look. And you can rename these files. I'm just being a little quick. And sure enough, we have a record for Bertha and a record for Samuel. That includes their date of birth, their age, their county, their gender, their race, and their ethnicity. These are CSV files, so if you want to save them and interact with them, you can always convert them to Excel files. We can see other ways to review older records. We can scroll through things, so we can sort by visit date. Let's say we wanted to look at the most recent visits, and we only wanted to look at visits for Bertha. We can filter on name, so let's do that. I think her last name was Johnson, so let's just type in the first few letters. And we can see we just have her visits coming up right here. And we can see her history over time as she went from having stimulant use disorder to having both opioid use and stimulant use, at which time she initiated methadone. So you can look through the client's history. And if you really want to, you can even download data just for one client. Let's say you really need to know something about this specific client. You can do that like this. So you would put the client ID here and then hit the download button. And then the data will pop up just for the client you're interested in. So that's another way if you need to look at specific clients to kind of focus a little bit more. I'm going to release my filter now by hitting the clear button and then go back to the client page and get ready for the next video. Let's talk about bulk uploading next.
Okay, so here's what you see when you click on the downloads button. So let's see. If you have multiple agencies, you'll have to specify which one you're downloading the file for. We keep data completely separated across agencies. So even if you can upload data to more than one agency, your colleagues might not. And we want to make sure that you're not downloading commingled data that is from other agencies just to keep things a little safer. So only one agency at a time. And if you're associated with more than one, you'll have to do multiple downloads. You can choose between the client registry just so that you have a 1 row per person record of the people who have come in, or the full visit data with 1 row per visit. You have the option to hide identifiers if you want this to be something that you can quickly pass on without having to worry about it being identified. But you can also uncheck the hide identifiers button so that you can download everything. That way you have a complete record of the data that you've been submitting. Remember that you own that data, and downloading it is your way of kind of keeping backups and keeping a hold of it. We have optional filters here. So you can specify client ID if you just want to get records for one person. You can specify a start and end date if you want to look at a range of time. And then the rest of the slides I have here, I think we can skip in the interest of trying to get us out just a little bit on time or even early. But I'll just say, that these slides include a discussion of bulk upload. And if you are interested in bulk upload, you can consult the YouTube videos. You can get to those links either through these slides or I think you've probably recently received an email from your implementation specialist or from me. But just remember that not everyone is going to be well served by bulk upload. It might feel familiar because it's like what you were doing before, but don't forget that Core was doing a lot of labor to make what you were doing before it's useful for the computer. And so for most people, it's better to use the web form. It'll save you a lot of time. If you are doing bulk upload, the data in the core system, which has undergone all that checking, is the information that you should be using for anything that you need to share with core, whether that means through downloading it back out of the system or through the reporting that we'll be launching next month, because that is the clean and double checked data. So don't pull numbers out of your own system. We're trying to get things to kind of match up a little bit better. All right, so you'll have a video on how to bulk upload for very large agencies. We can just skip that today. Feel free to check it out on YouTube. And there's one for checking and fixing errors identified during bulk upload. One of the things I hit on in the video is how to like interact with the data dictionary and like make sure that things work. So if you have to do bulk upload, then it's really similar to what you did before. It's just that we're really enforcing the rules now. All right, so if you clicked on the upload data button, you would see these template and data dictionary links. That's what you would want to really lean heavily on as you're preparing your file. You would upload it using the choose file button and then submit it. You'll get a validation report if you uploaded bulk data telling you how many clients and how many visits. We expect that the clients won't always be as many as the visits, because if someone comes in more than once, we'll just add them in as a client one time and then attach subsequent visits to that. If something goes wrong, if you leave out a column or if you put in a value that's not in the data dictionary, or if the date formatting goes wrong, anything like that, you'll get a failure report. That means your entire file was rejected and you need to correct all issues before you try again. We do tell you which row the issues were identified on and try to give you some instructions on how to fix them. But again, I think this is something that should only be used by very large agencies with a fairly clean data to begin with. And so if you're already exporting it from a system, then you should just be leaning on the data dictionary as you find replace and convert your data. We don't expect anyone would ever type data in to do a bulk upload. That wouldn't make sense. All right. So we have some features that are still under development. I haven't been able to show you today. We expect them to go up within the next month. The first is the community engagement tracker. So because that's not ready yet, just continue submitting the spreadsheet that you were using before. It's really simple data, so we're hoping that that won't be too bad. And then we'll get that up as quickly as we can, and you can transition to reporting it through our portal. The reports and graphs are coming soon. We're finalizing some plans here. So we're hoping to have those live within the next month. That the parent system is informing a lot of our designs, so we're just trying to get things lining up. In these slides that I shared with you all, I have some special situations that you might want to review. If you have data from more than one program, if you need to leave out client name and date of birth, if you want to use a combined approach to your data. So you can review those on your own time if you'd like to. Just remember that you can get a hold of me and Laura if you need anything. Definitely reach out to me this week, especially if you have any issues. If anything feels sticky to you, I want to make it better. So just reach out to me and we'll figure it out. I know I got an email from one of you that you hadn't got an email invite today. So I'll make sure and fix that as soon as I get off this call. And worst case scenario, you'll get it by tomorrow morning. We've been kind of doing rounds of invites every morning. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording so I can put this up on YouTube. How do I?